Delhi. You're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world, with me, Deepika, coming up in the next half an hour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi speaks to his Israeli counterpart, Benjamin Netanyahu, reaffirms shared resolve to fight terrorism with greater determination. India's real GDP witnesses 7.4% growth rate in financial year 2025-26, with buoyant growth in services sector, as per the first advanced estimates of GDP for the financial year 25-26. US President Donald Trump discusses options including military action to take control of Greenland. Denmark warns the move will destroy NATO alliance. Volodymyr Zelensky meets Cyprus's President Nikos Christodoulidis in Nicosia as Ireland assumes European Union presidency. Zelensky to later hold talks with European Union Commission President as well. Good evening to all the viewers joining us at this evening broadcast. To begin with Venezuela. Venezuela's interim president insists that no foreign power was governing her country, even as US President Donald Trump announced Caracas will be swiftly turning over millions of barrels of oil to the Washington. A week-long mourning for members of the military killed in the US raid have also taken place. Let's take a look at this report for all the latest updates on Venezuela.
Turmoil and tension is gripping the oil-rich nation of Venezuela after dramatic US military operation that ousted President Nicolas Maduro. Venezuela's interim president, Delcy Rodriguez, is scrambling to assert control amid mounting domestic resistance, international criticism, and a standoff with the United States. Rodriguez has ordered the activation of an agro-food, industrial, and communal high command to protect the nation's productive apparatus to ensure the flow of essential goods and industrial production remains uninterrupted, and urged for unity.
Venezuelans, let's keep working so that at the end of 2026 we can say that we have fulfilled our duty as a country in national unity, that we Venezuelans have fulfilled our duty in all the productive sectors.
US President Donald Trump was startling candid about his intent regarding the South American country's reserves when he declared that Venezuela will turn over 30 million to 50 million barrels of oil to the United States. Venezuela has millions of barrels of oil loaded on tankers in storage tanks that it had been unable to ship due to a blockade on exports by the US since mid-December. The blockade was part of rising US pressure on the government of the then Venezuelan President Maduro that culminated in the US forces capturing him last weekend. Oil CEOs are expected to visit the White House as early on Thursday to discuss investments in Venezuela. Meanwhile, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has said Canadian oil will remain competitive even if Venezuela boosts output. Thousands of Venezuelans poured into the streets of Caracas, not in celebration but demanding the release of Nicolas Maduro and his wife. Opposition leader Maria Corina Machado, sidelined by Washington in the post-Maduro transition, warned that Rodriguez was not to be trusted. In its first confirmation of losses, Venezuela published a list of 23 troops killed in the US strikes. 7 days of mourning was declared. Havana separately issued a list of 32 dead Cuban military personnel. Meanwhile, Venezuelans continue crossing into Colombia in search of safety and stability. Bogota has deployed tens of thousands of troops to secure its border, warning that its sovereignty must be defended after threats from Washington of potential military action similar to the one carried out in Caracas. The international community is sharply divided. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio spoke to the foreign ministers of the G7 countries about the importance of freeing Venezuela political prisoners and putting in place the conditions for democracy and planning for elections. Canada is on the same page, but Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said United States has set a terrible and a dangerous precedent in Venezuela. The Venezuelan constitution says that after Maduro is formally declared absent, which could happen after 6 months, elections must then be held within 30 days. The next weeks could determine whether Venezuela stabilizes or spirals deeper into conflict and diplomatic crisis. Bureau Report, DD India.
US President Donald Trump is discussing options, including military action, to take control of Greenland. Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Norway and Sweden stress collective dedication to Arctic security and urge respect for international law. Meanwhile, France is working with the partners on a plan over how to respond to Washington. Here's more.
The White House said on Tuesday that President Donald Trump is discussing options for acquiring Greenland, including potential use of the US military. Washington's stark warning came despite Greenland and Denmark both calling for speedy meeting with the United States to clear up misunderstandings. Denmark has warned that any move to take Greenland by force would mean that everything would stop, including NATO and 80 years of close transatlantic security links. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk said Denmark can count on European solidarity over Greenland, while warning that NATO members should never attack or threaten each other.
No member of NATO should attack or threaten another member of the NATO. Otherwise, it would lose its meaning if conflict or aggressive action occurred within the alliance.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister of Greenland, Jens Frederik Nielsen, said on Tuesday that Greenland is open to dialogue and discussions with the US, but they must take place through the proper channels and in respect of international law.
Firstly, I believe that the American president should be taken seriously when he says that he wants Greenland. But I also want to make it clear that if the United States chooses to attack another NATO country militarily, then everything stops. That is, including our NATO, and thus the security that has been provided since the end of the Second World War.
Trump's remarks and threats over Greenland have also triggered sharp reactions across Europe, deepening tensions within NATO just days after the Venezuela operation. With Greenland at the center of transatlantic tensions, European leaders are standing firm on sovereignty and NATO unity. As for now, the Arctic island remains a symbol of both strategic importance and political friction. Anamika Pandit's report for DD India.
And to talk more on this, we are joined by DW correspondent Hans Pratt from Berlin. Good evening, Hans. Well, Denmark is a member of the European Union and also a member of NATO. That makes Greenland European Union and NATO territory as well. Now, do European leaders really need to be concerned?
Yes, I think they do really need to be concerned, especially in the light of US action in Venezuela in recent days. They have demonstrated that Donald Trump is very determined to push through his plans, his ideas, despite resistance, international criticism, and so on. And as was mentioned, there have been statements from very close advisors to Donald Trump in recent days that even military action could not be excluded. One advisor said that Greenland should belong to the United States, that nobody should resist this, that United States interests would have first place in any discussions, in any considerations of the future of Greenland. It's something that Donald Trump has been talking about for several years already, but in recent days, recent weeks, the pressure has increased substantially. Officially, there's talk about the strategic importance of Greenland in the Arctic region, with China and Russia also very active there. But there are also business interests that play a role here. Natural resources in Greenland, rare earths and certain kinds of minerals are something that Donald Trump is looking at. And in a sense, you could say it would be one of the biggest real estate business deals that he would ever perform if he were to do something like that. He's even talked about buying Greenland. So it's a very complex situation.
Now, one would also expect the European leaders to be absolutely clear in their defense of Greenland. Has this been the case so far?
Yes, indeed. If one compares the European reaction to Venezuela, to events in Venezuela, there Europe was very cagey, very reticent. There was no real condemnation of US action there. But as regards Greenland, top European leaders, including the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, issued a joint statement together with Denmark, and they said that all discussions about Greenland should be based on international law, on the respect of territory, on the respect of international borders, and that only decisions made by Denmark and the Greenland people should be decisions that should be respected. But that's really where the problem lies. Greenland has been controlled by Denmark for hundreds of years, but it is in a sense still a colony, and there are people in Greenland that are not very comfortable with being controlled from Denmark, and the United States is trying to kind of drive a wedge between the people of Greenland and Denmark. That's certainly one angle that could lead to further discussions, especially from the side of the people of Greenland.
Now, if the US really enforced its will in Greenland, what would that mean for the NATO military alliance?
Well, Denmark has warned that it would be the end of the NATO alliance. And if you look at what the NATO alliance is all about, it's a way of saying if one member gets attacked, then all the other members will regard that as an attack on their own territory and will defend that member. But what happens if one member of NATO attacks or pressures or takes territory from another member of NATO? That's something that the NATO alliance isn't really made to be, and it concerns not only European countries but also countries such as Canada and Turkey. Of course, we have to say that within NATO there's been a lot of pressure in recent months and years already from the United States, especially from Donald Trump, who's been telling the other countries that they need to take more responsibility, pay more money, offer more troops into NATO. So there's a lot of tension within NATO already. The situation is far from stable. On the other hand, you could say that NATO could be a way of resolving the issue around Greenland. If Greenland were to be controlled militarily by a NATO alliance with the United States in the lead, that could be a diplomatic solution for the situation. But diplomatic solutions are not what Donald Trump is normally interested in.
Right. All right. Thank you so much, Hans Pratt, for joining us from Berlin and giving us the latest on this. Moving on, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has spoken to his Israeli counterpart, Benjamin Netanyahu. Prime Minister Modi received a telephone call from the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, on Wednesday. The two leaders warmly exchanged New Year greetings and wished the people of both the countries peace and prosperity. They identified shared priorities to further strengthen the India-Israel strategic partnership in the year ahead, guided by shared democratic values, deep mutual trust, and a forward-looking vision. They reiterated their zero-tolerance approach towards terrorism in all its forms and manifestations and reaffirmed their commitment to fight this menace. Prime Minister Netanyahu briefed Prime Minister on the implementation of the Gaza peace plan, whereas PM reaffirmed India's consistent support for efforts towards a just and durable peace in the region. They also exchanged views on regional and global issues of mutual interest. The two leaders agreed to remain in touch. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met with Cyprus's President Nikos Christodoulidis in Nicosia at the Mediterranean island that formally assumes the rotating presidency of the European Union. Zelensky will also later hold talks with European Union Commission President and European Council President before attending a ceremony to mark the start of the European Union presidency. During their meeting, Zelensky said that during Cyprus's presidency, a lot of steps could be taken forward closer to Ukraine's membership in the European Union. Now, India on Wednesday projected economic growth of 7.4% in fiscal 2025-26 year, underscoring resilience in Asia's third largest economy, even as global growth slows down. The data released by the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation on Wednesday, including the gross GDP projections as part of the first advanced estimates, will undergo revision through the year. The data also revealed that real gross value added is expected to expand by 7.3% in financial year 2026, up from 6.4% in financial year 2025. The economy continued to expand at a faster than anticipated rate in July-September, with GDP growth rising to a six-quarter high of 8.2% on the back of near double-digit growth in the services sector. The manufacturing sector too has clocked its fastest pace of expansion in 6 quarters. And to give you more on this, I'm joined by Mark Lynn. Good evening, Mark. What have been the contributing factors to this improved GDP figure?
Well, Deepika, first we must understand that these are estimates actually of real GDP for the financial year 2025-26, which will conclude at the end of March this year. So the 7.4%, this advanced estimate of real GDP, when we talk about real GDP, we know that this is a clearer description of what GDP is because it's adjusted against inflation. Otherwise, nominal GDP is already coming in at about 8%. So this gives you a clear idea. And when we talk about what are the contributing factors, you have mentioned that it is all-round growth really that has taken place, but largely driven by services. And services, India has now become a services-driven economy. We can see that because of digital services, a lot of things have improved. Speed of implementation has largely improved, and we are seeing that there are several services, financial services, real estate sector, professional services, public administration. All this combined is improving the tertiary sector, which is contributing at about 9.9% currently to the GDP. Another significant aspect that we have to take into account is that gross fixed capital formation, which is another word for investment actually, how capital is forming in the economy. So that is growing at the rate of 7.8% against 7.1% in the previous year, which is a significant rise. And that's a sign that investment is coming in, which is really the foundation for future growth. Deepika.
All right. Thank you so much, Mark, for joining us and giving us the latest on this. Moving on, India's Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal on Wednesday met with Prime Minister of Liechtenstein. The two leaders discussed strengthening economic and investment ties with a focus on the India-EFTA TAPA to boost investment flows, manufacturing growth and job creation, resulting in mutual prosperity for both the nations. They also exchanged views on cooperation in industry-academia linkages. Minister Piyush Goyal also met with the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs of Liechtenstein. Both of them discussed opportunities for trade expansion, innovation and clean tech and explored ways to deepen mutually beneficial ties, especially after the operationalization of the India-EFTA TEPA. Earlier, Piyush Goyal called on hereditary Prince Alois of Liechtenstein. He handed over a letter from Prime Minister Narendra Modi inviting the Prince to attend India AI Impact Summit that will be held in New Delhi in February this year. India's clean mobility transitions gets a major policy boost. The Petroleum and Natural Gas Regulatory Board, along with leading city gas distribution entities, has announced the launch of a landmark study on comparative assessment of vehicular fuels in India's energy transition. The study will be conducted by TERI, which will evaluate EVs, natural gas, petrol and diesel across technical, environmental and economic parameters.
The only thing we can do is, first of all, guide them what is cleaner, how to go about it, what is the advantage, and somewhere also suggest to the government for the policy decision, because ultimately it is not just air pollution. Air pollution is connected to your and my health. So I have to look at the health burden as well. I have to look at the road infrastructure, because if it prevents congestion, then also the emissions are going to reduce.
Air quality in urban centers continues to challenge policymakers and administrators. Now we have CGD bid out across the country, and almost 1.4 lakh crore rupees has been invested by GAIL and other pipeline entities as well as the CGD people. So we are driving that agenda, setting up of more CNG stations.
Moving on. From losing her eyesight at the age of 8 to conquering some of the toughest terrains on earth, mountaineer Shonzen Angmo's journey redefines what vision truly means. We bring you the story of a woman who proves that courage sees no limits. She speaks exclusively with DD India's Abhishek Mahajan. Take a listen.
From the icy heights of Siachen to scaling Mount Everest, her journey is not only inspirational, it's transformational. We have mountaineer Shonzen Angmo with us, who lost her eyesight at the age of 8 years, but despite that, she overcame different challenges. She is with us. You have conquered high altitude peaks. You have scaled Mount Everest. You have conquered Siachen. You have done exceptionally well in judo, swimming, cycling also. Tell us what motivated you, what helped you sail through?
I belong in very small village, Chango district in North Himachal Pradesh. Sir, when I lost my eyesight, so on that time I thought my life has ended. So my parents also very worry about me how as a woman as well as a visually challenged woman. So they are thinking about my futures. So after that they decide to send in the school. Apart from my education and work, I participate in extracurricular like you already mentioned, like mountaineering, cycling, running, hiking, judo, football, cricket, state, national and international level.
You are an inspiration for the youngsters with different disabilities who think that society has defined their limits. What message do you want to give to the youngsters?
If you have determination and hard work, so you can do anything.
All right, so thank you for speaking with us today, and you have actually shown courage combined with opportunity can do wonders. Thank you, Shonzen Angmo, for speaking with DD India. With cameraman Saurabh Bakshi, this is Abhishek Mahajan in Delhi for DD India.
The ICC T20 World Cup trophy was displayed for public viewing in Kathmandu today. The trophy, which is on tour of Nepal, was kept at the Bodh Stupa, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. President of Nepal said that advent of the trophy in Nepal was a proud moment for the country. President Paudel also expressed gratitude to the International Cricket Council, noting that the visit has significantly boosted enthusiasm among cricket fans. Rohit Paudel will lead a 15-member Nepal squad in the World Cup, which will be held in India and Sri Lanka next month. In tennis, Coco Gauff pulled off a double duty to drag defending champions, the United States, into the United Cup semi-finals in Perth today. Fourth-ranked Gauff secured a 6-3, 6-2 victory and overcame Maria Sakkari of Greece. But Stefanos Tsitsipas brought Greece level by defeating Taylor Fritz by 6-4 and 7-5. In the deciding mixed doubles, Gauff teamed up with Christian Harrison to battle past Tsitsipas and Sakkari. Poland will play hosts Australia, with the winners facing the United States for a place in Sunday's final. The Mixed Team United Cup features 18 teams and serves as a build-up towards the Australian Open that starts on the 18th of January. Moving on. Wednesday marks the 59th birth anniversary of Indian actor Irrfan Khan. One of India's finest actors, Irrfan Khan carved a unique space for himself with performances that were subtle, powerful and deeply human. From parallel cinema to Hollywood, his work crossed borders and touched the audiences worldwide. As we remember the actor and his remarkable journey, here is a look at the life, legacy and lasting impact of Irrfan Khan. Diptanshu Kashyap reports. Take a look.
One of Indian cinema's most distinctive and internationally respected actors, Irrfan Khan was known for his quiet intensity, emotional depth and an ability to bring extraordinary realism to ordinary lives. Across Indian, British and American cinema, his performances stood apart for their restraint and honesty, making him a rare artist whose work transcended language and political borders. Born Sahabzade Irrfan Ali Khan on January 7, 1967 in Jaipur, Rajasthan, he came from a Pashto-speaking Muslim family. A talented cricketer in his youth, Irrfan was selected for the CK Naidu tournament but could not attend due to lack of funds. It proved to be a turning point in his life that led him towards acting. In 1984, he earned a scholarship to the National School of Drama in New Delhi. After early struggles, which included nearly a decade in television, his film career began with a small role in Salaam Bombay. Acclaimed performances in The Warrior, Hasil and Maqbool cemented his place as one of the best actors in India. His other notable movies include Life in a Metro, Pan Singh Tomar, The Lunchbox, Hindi Medium, Talwar and Haider. International recognition followed with films such as The Namesake, Slumdog Millionaire, Life of Pi and The Amazing Spider-Man. His honors include National Film Award for the Best Actor for Pan Singh Tomar, multiple Filmfare Awards and Padma Shri in 2011. Diagnosed with a neuroendocrine tumor in 2018, Irrfan continued to act with quiet grace and courage. He made his final appearances in Karwan and Angrezi Medium before passing away on April 29, 2020 at the age of 53, leaving behind a legacy of performances that continue to move, challenge and inspire. Diptanshu Kashyap's report for DD India.
And that's all for this edition of DD India Live. But do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download it right now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Deepika, and from all of us here in New Delhi, thank you so much for watching DD India Live. Namaskar.